First contact gone wrong. The Aurora's hull creaked as it decelerated from its final jump, emerging into an unremarkable star system 60 light-years from Earth. Dr. Sarah Chen stood at the observation deck, her dark eyes fixed on the rust-colored planet growing larger in the viewport. After 18 months of deep space exploration, most of the crew had grown weary of finding yet another lifeless world, but Sarah's enthusiasm remained undiminished. "Preliminary scans complete, Doctor," announced Lieutenant Marcus Webb from his station. "Atmosphere is thin but breathable with supplements. Surface temperature averaging -20°C. No signs of active technology, but—" He paused, frowning at his display. "We're picking up some unusual mineral formations in the northern hemisphere." Sarah felt her pulse quicken. She'd seen enough natural formations to know when something was different. "Can you get me a high-resolution surface scan of that area?" The holographic display flickered to life, showing topographical data in shifting colors. What initially appeared to be a mountain range resolved into something far more interesting, geometric patterns too precise to be natural. Sarah's hands moved swiftly across the console, enhancing different sections of the image. "Captain," she called out, her voice steady despite her excitement, "I think we need to send down a ground team." Captain Diana Hayes approached the display, her silver-streaked hair pulled back in a tight bun. She studied the data with the careful consideration that had kept her crew alive through countless missions. "Those look like structures to you." "Artificial structures," Sarah confirmed. "And based on the erosion patterns, they're old. Very old." Hayes nodded slowly. "How long until the storm system passes that region?" 3 hours, 17 minutes, Webb reported. "Prep the shuttle," Hayes ordered. "Dr. Chen, select your team. But remember, we observe only. No interaction with any technology we might find. The Outer Colonies Preservation Act is clear on that." Sarah assembled her team quickly. Herself, Lieutenant Webb for security and scanning equipment, and Dr. Raj Patel, whose expertise in alien materials had proved invaluable on previous expeditions. As they suited up in the shuttle bay, Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that this discovery would be different from all the others. The descent through the thin atmosphere was smooth, the shuttle's AI compensating for occasional wind gusts. They landed 2 kilometers from the main structure site, the shuttle's landing struts crunching through a layer of frost-covered rock. "Atmosphere check complete," Webb announced. "Supplements functioning normally. We can proceed with the surface walk." Sarah stepped onto the alien surface, her boots leaving clear imprints in the rusty soil. The structures they'd spotted from orbit rose before them, massive crystalline spires that caught the dim light of the system's aging star. What had once clearly been a city now stood silent, its buildings half buried in millennia of accumulated dust. "These readings are unprecedented," Raj muttered, waving his scanner over a partially exposed wall. "The material composition. It's like nothing in our database. The crystalline structure appears to be artificially grown, but at an atomic level." They made their way deeper into the ruins, documenting everything. Sarah's trained eye noted how the buildings were arranged in precise mathematical patterns. This hadn't just been a city, it had been a machine on a massive scale. "Dr. Chen," Webb's voice crackled through the comm. "You need to see this." She found him standing in what appeared to be a central plaza. The ground here had been cleared by recent dust storms, revealing an intricate pattern of interlocking circles etched into the surface. In the center stood a pillar of the same crystalline material as the buildings, but this one was different. Even under centuries of dust, it seemed to hold a faint inner light. "Energy readings are active," Raj reported, his voice tense. "Low, but steady. Whatever this is, it's still functioning." Sarah approached the pillar carefully, her heart pounding. This was the kind of discovery xenorchaeologists dreamed of. Proof of an advanced civilization that predated humanity's first steps into space. As she drew closer, the surface of the pillar began to respond, patterns of light shifting beneath its translucent surface. "We should back away," Webb suggested, his hand moving to his sidearm. "Protocol states." Before he could finish, a pulse of energy rippled through the plaza. The patterns in the ground lit up one by one, forming an expanding circle of brilliant blue light. Sarah stumbled backward as a holographic display burst from the pillar, filling the air with alien symbols that shifted and changed rapidly. "It's some kind of transmission," Rad shouted, his scanner beeping frantically. "The power output is increasing exponentially." "Back to the shuttle," Sarah ordered, but she knew it was too late. Whatever they had activated was already sending its message into deep space. As they ran back to their vessel, she couldn't shake the feeling that they had just announced humanity's presence to something that had been waiting a very long time for such a signal. The Aurora broke orbit within the hour, accelerating hard for the jump point. But as they prepared for faster-than-light travel, their long-range sensors detected something that made Sarah's blood run cold. Multiple objects, massive in scale, had changed course in the distant darkness between stars. They were heading toward human space, and they were moving fast. In her quarters that night, Sarah stared at the initial translations of the symbols they'd recorded. One phrase kept repeating, and its meaning filled her with dread. "The sleepers have been awakened. The judgment of the inheritors begins." Humanity's first contact with an advanced alien civilization was about to begin, and it had started with an alarm bell they never meant to ring. The hidden protocol. Commander James Rodriguez stood in the dimly lit command center of Luna Base, staring at the holographic display that showed the approaching Nexus vessels. 3 weeks had passed since the Aurora's discovery, and humanity's worst fears were being realized. The alien ships had already passed the outer marker buoys of the solar system, their massive forms dwarfing anything humanity had built. Another transmission from Earth Defense Command. "Sir," Lieutenant Emma Foster reported, her voice tight with tension. "They're requesting your presence at an emergency council meeting." Rodriguez nodded, his weathered face reflecting the blue light of the tactical displays. At 45, he'd spent most of his career commanding what everyone thought was a simple monitoring station. Only a handful of people knew that Luna Base was much more than it appeared. The shuttle ride to Earth was brief, giving him little time to prepare for what he knew would be the most important meeting of his life. The Defense Council chamber was packed when he arrived, filled with military leaders and civilian officials from every major nation. Admiral Chen, no relation to the Aurora's xenorchaeologist, stood at the central podium. "The situation is clear," she announced, her voice carrying across the silent room. "The Nexus fleet will reach Earth in less than 2 weeks. Their response to our attempts at communication has been unambiguous. They consider our mere presence in space a violation of their laws." Murmurs filled the chamber. Rodriguez noticed how many of the civilian officials looked defeated already. They didn't know what he knew. "With all due respect, Admiral," he spoke up, his voice cutting through the noise, "I believe it's time to implement Protocol Omega." The room fell silent. Most of the people present had never heard of the protocol, but the way the senior military officers stiffened told Rodriguez everything he needed to know. Admiral Chen's expression remained neutral. "Commander Rodriguez, please explain to the Council exactly what Protocol Omega entails." He stepped forward, entering a series of commands into his secure tablet. The chamber's main display changed, showing a complex network of hidden facilities throughout the solar system. In 2157, shortly after we established our first extrasolar colonies, a group of military leaders and scientists proposed a radical idea. What if we weren't alone? What if what we found out there wasn't friendly? The result was Protocol Omega, humanity's insurance policy. The display zoomed in on various locations: massive shipyards hidden in Jupiter's atmosphere, weapon factories buried in Mars' polar ice caps, training facilities tucked away in asteroid belts. For the past 70 years, we've been preparing. Every failed space mission, every lost cargo ship, every abandoned mining operation, they were all part of the protocol. We've built ships, weapons, and defensive systems that the public never knew existed. Impossible, one of the civilian counselors protested. The resources required. Someone would have noticed. Rodriguez allowed himself a small smile. Did you ever wonder why the Mars terraforming project always seemed to need more resources than projected? Or why the Jupiter mining operations never quite met their quotas? We hid the program in plain sight, spreading it across hundreds of projects and thousands of budget lines. He brought up new images, sleek warships unlike anything in Earth's known fleet, advanced weapon systems that looked like they belonged in science fiction. The Nexus thinks they're facing a primitive species that barely understands interstellar travel. They don't know that we've spent 3 generations preparing for exactly this scenario. And the crews? Another counselor asked. Ships need people to operate them. Not these ships, Rodriguez replied. Another part of Protocol Omega was the development of advanced AI systems designed specifically for space combat. We have 10,000 autonomous vessels ready to deploy, each one capable of learning and adapting during battle. Admiral Chen took over. What Commander Rodriguez is saying is true. I've personally overseen parts of this program for the past decade. But understanding what we have is only the first step. We need to decide how to use it. Rodriguez brought up the latest sensor data of the approaching Nexus fleet. Their ships are bigger than ours, and their technology is more advanced. But we have advantages they don't know about. Our ships are smaller but more numerous. They're designed to fight as a coordinated swarm, using tactics no organic crew could execute. He highlighted key points in the solar system. We've also seeded the approach vectors with automated defense platforms disguised as communication relays and navigation beacons. The entire solar system is one giant trap, waiting to be sprung. The chamber erupted in heated discussion. Rodriguez watched as the reality of what humanity had accomplished in secret slowly sank in. They weren't helpless. They had been preparing for this moment for longer than most people in the room had been alive. Admiral Chen called for order. We need to vote. The activation of Protocol Omega requires unanimous consent from this council. Before you decide, remember, this is not just about Earth. The Nexus has already stated their intention to cleanse all human colonies. Every human settlement, every outpost, every ship carrying our people among the stars is at risk. One by one, the council members cast their votes. Rodriguez held his breath as the final tally appeared on the display. Unanimous approval. Commander Rodriguez. Admiral Chen's voice was firm. You are hereby authorized to activate Protocol Omega. God help us all. He didn't waste a second, transmitting the activation codes from his secure tablet. Throughout the solar system, hidden facilities hummed to life. In Jupiter's storms, massive hangar doors began to open. Beneath the ice of Europa, weapon systems powered up. And in secure servers scattered across a dozen locations, humanity's most advanced AI systems awakened, ready to defend their creators. The real question wasn't whether humanity could fight. The question was whether the Nexus would realize their mistake before it was too late. The shield makers. Dr. Elena Petrov didn't look up from her holographic display when the alarm started blaring throughout the Europa facility. She'd been expecting them. Her team of quantum engineers had been working for this moment for the past 15 years, and she wasn't about to let a mere alien invasion interrupt their final calculations. Shield matrix simulation running at 98% efficiency, her assistant Michael Chang announced from his station. The massive underground laboratory hummed with energy as the most ambitious engineering project in human history approached completion. Not good enough, Elena muttered, her fingers dancing across the floating equations. The Nexus ships are generating power outputs that could tear through anything less than 99.5%. Push the quantum harmonics higher. The facility shook slightly as another icequake rippled through Europa's crust. The moon's constant geological activity had made it the perfect hiding place for the Quantum Shield Array project. Any unusual energy signatures could be easily dismissed as natural phenomena. Dr. Petrov, a firm voice called from the entrance. Status report. Elena finally looked up to see Admiral Chen striding across the laboratory floor, accompanied by Commander Rodriguez. Their presence here, rather than at the Defense Coordination Center on Luna, told her everything she needed to know about the situation's urgency. "We're close," Elena reported, bringing up a larger display of the shield design. "The quantum field generators are stabilizing faster than expected, but we're still having issues with the coverage radius." The display showed a massive network of satellites and stations positioned throughout the solar system, each one designed to generate a portion of the quantum shield. In theory, when activated together, they would create an interlocking defensive barrier capable of protecting entire planets. "How long?" Rodriguez asked, studying the technical readouts with a practiced eye. 3 days to full deployment," Elena answered. "Maybe 2 if we push the systems to their limits." "The Nexus fleet will be here in 4 days," Admiral Chen stated flatly. "Their advanced scouts have already engaged our outer system defenses. We need this shield, Doctor." Elena nodded, turning back to her work. "You'll have it. But there's something else you need to know." She brought up a new set of data streams. "We've been analyzing the energy signatures from the Nexus ships. Their weapons technology. It's not just advanced, it's familiar." "Familiar how?" Rodriguez asked, stepping closer to the display. "The quantum frequency patterns they're using match theoretical models we developed during the early stages of this project. It's like they're using a more advanced version of our own technology." Elena highlighted specific data points. "That's why we've been able to adapt our shields so quickly. We're not just building defenses. We're building counters to weapons we almost invented ourselves." Admiral Chen's eyes narrowed. "Are you suggesting that somewhere in their past, the Nexus developed along similar technological lines to humanity?" "Yes." Elena switched to another display, showing comparative analyses. "But they took a different path. Where we focused on defensive applications of quantum field theory, they weaponized it. Their entire technological base seems built around overwhelming force rather than protection." A junior technician rushed up to Elena's station, tablet in hand. "Doctor, we're getting unusual readings from Generator Array 7. The quantum field is showing signs of spontaneous synchronization." Elena's eyes widened. This was something they'd only seen in simulations. "Bring it up on the main display." The hologram shifted to show real-time data from the generator array. The quantum field wasn't just stabilizing. It was evolving, forming patterns that shouldn't have been possible with their current technology. "It's learning," Elena whispered. "The quantum field is adapting itself to match the Nexus energy signatures. The shield isn't just blocking their weapons, it's learning from them." Rodriguez stepped forward. "Can you replicate this effect across the entire array?" "Better," Elena replied, her fingers flying across the controls. "We can use it to create a feedback loop. Every time they hit our shields, the quantum field will adapt and strengthen. The more power they throw at us, the stronger our defenses become." Admiral Chen finished. "How quickly can you implement this?" Elena performed rapid calculations in her head. "If we divert all power to the synchronization protocols and run the risk of burning out some of the secondary systems, 36 hours. "Do it," Chen ordered. "Commander Rodriguez, I want every available resource dedicated to protecting this facility while they finish. If the Nexus realizes what we're building here." Rodriguez was already moving, coordinating with the defense fleet via his neural link. "They won't get near Europa. The automated defense grid is at full strength, and I've got our best AI systems running interference patterns." Elena turned back to her team, her voice carrying across the laboratory. "You heard the Admiral. 36 hours to save humanity. Let's make them count." The next day and a half became a blur of calculations, adjustments, and desperate innovations. Elena's team worked in shifts, but she refused to rest, surviving on stimulants and sheer determination. They lost 2 generator arrays to power surges, and a Nexus scout ship nearly discovered their facility before being destroyed by the defense grid, but the work continued. As the final hours counted down, Alina stood before the master control panel, her hand hovering over the activation sequence. The quantum field generators had been deployed throughout the solar system, disguised as everything from debris to small asteroids. Once activated, they would create the largest defensive system ever conceived by human minds. "All stations report ready," Michael announced. "Quantum field synchronization at optimal levels." Alina took a deep breath. "Initialize primary sequence. Let's show the Nexus that humanity knows how to do more than just throw punches." The activation command pulsed out at light speed. Across the solar system, thousands of quantum generators spun to life. On her display, Alina watched as the shield grid took shape, each node connecting to create a vast, invisible web of protection. As the system came online, the first reports started coming in from the outer system defenses. The Nexus fleet had arrived in force, their massive ships pushing through the automated defense lines. They would reach Earth in less than 12 hours. Alina smiled grimly as the final diagnostics came back green. Humanity's shield was ready. Now they just had to hope it would be enough to stop an enemy that had conquered galaxies. The real test was about to begin. Unexpected allies. The Nexus ship materialized just beyond Mars' orbit, its crystalline hull refracting sunlight in patterns that seemed to defy physics. Commander Rodriguez watched from the bridge of the UES Hyperion as automated defense platforms swiveled to target the intruder. But something was different about this vessel. It was smaller than the other Nexus ships, and it wasn't moving to attack. "Sir," Lieutenant Foster's voice carried across the bridge. "They're broadcasting on all frequencies." The message. She paused, double-checking her readings. "It's in English." "Put it through," Rodriguez ordered, sharing a glance with Admiral Chen, who had joined his command for this sector's defense coordination. A holographic figure appeared on the bridge, humanoid, but clearly alien. Its crystalline skin seemed to pulse with internal light, and its eyes held the weight of centuries. When it spoke, its voice was melodious, almost musical. "I am Ambassador Kyriax of the Free Nexus Coalition. We come seeking dialogue with humanity before it is too late." Admiral Chen stepped forward. "You'll understand if we're skeptical. Your fleet has already attacked 3 of our outer colonies." "Those attacks were carried out by the dominant Nexus," Kyriax replied. "We are different. A faction that broke away centuries ago. We believe the dominance policy of technological supremacy has become corrupted, twisted from its original purpose." Rodriguez studied the alien carefully. "And why should we trust you?" "Because we bring knowledge of the dominance weaknesses, and because we have seen something in humanity that many of my people have forgotten. The capacity to grow, to innovate, to find new paths forward." The ambassador's form shifted, and suddenly the bridge was filled with tactical displays showing Nexus fleet movements and technical specifications. The dominant fleet approaching Earth is led by Supreme Commander Vexthor. He is zealous, even by dominant standards. He believes that any species that develops quantum technology without Nexus guidance must be eliminated. "Your quantum sensors detected our shield project," Alina stated flatly. She had joined the command staff after completing the shield's activation, and now stood analyzing the Nexus technical data with rapid comprehension. "Yes," Kyriax confirmed, "but there is more. The ancient ruins your people discovered, they were not just a city. They were a test, left by those who came before even the Nexus. Many such sites exist throughout the galaxy, waiting for young species to find them. How each species reacts to these discoveries determines much." Admiral Chen's eyes narrowed. "And how did humanity react differently?" "Most species, upon finding such technology, attempt to use it immediately, to copy it, to claim it as their own. But your Dr. Chen and her team, they observed, they documented, they sought to understand rather than possess. This is what the dominants have forgotten. The joy of discovery itself." The tactical displays shifted again, showing detailed scans of the approaching dominant fleet. "We can help you survive what is coming. But you must understand, This isn't just about humanity's survival now. This is about changing the very nature of how the Nexus interacts with younger species. Rodriguez looked at Admiral Chen, who nodded slightly. What exactly are you proposing? An alliance. Kyrax replied. We can provide you with the command codes for the Dominant's quantum communication networks. Your shield technology, combined with this knowledge, could not only protect Earth, but potentially disable their entire fleet. And in return, Elena asked, still studying the technical data. We ask only that when this is over, humanity helps us build something new. An interstellar community based on cooperation and mutual growth, not dominance and control. Admiral Chen stepped forward. We'll need to verify your information, and any coordination would require approval from Earth's Defense Council. Of course, Kyrax agreed. But be aware, you have less time than you think. Vexthor's scans have detected your quantum shield. He has already ordered the fleet to accelerate. They will reach Earth in 6 hours, not 12 as you predicted. The bridge erupted in activity as officers rushed to verify this information. Rodriguez watched as the long-range sensor data updated, confirming the ambassador's warning. Get me a secure line to the Defense Council, Admiral Chen ordered. And Dr. Petrov, how quickly can you incorporate this new data into the shield systems? Elena was already running simulations. The quantum frequency codes could increase our shield efficiency by at least 30%. If they're real. They are real, Kyrax said quietly, just as the threat is real. The question is, can your people move quickly enough to use this knowledge? Rodriguez studied the tactical displays, watching as humanity's greatest crisis became even more complex. They had prepared for decades to fight the Nexus, but now they were being offered a chance to do something far more difficult, to forge an alliance that could change the course of galactic history. Signal the Defense Council, he ordered. Tell them we have 6 hours to either make history or become it. As the message was transmitted, Rodriguez couldn't help but wonder, was this another test? Were they being offered this chance because humanity had proven itself through preparation and innovation, or was there something else at play? The next 6 hours would determine not just the fate of humanity, but perhaps the future of all younger species in the galaxy. The countdown to Earth's moment of truth had begun. Humanity's gambit. The void between Mars and Earth lit up with energy signatures as the dominant Nexus fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel. Supreme Commander Vexthor's flagship led the formation, a massive crystalline structure that seemed to absorb nearby starlight. Behind it, over 1,000 warships moved into attack positions. In Europa's command center, Elena watched the sensor feeds with growing concern. The quantum harmonics from their weapons are off the charts. They're planning to hit us with everything at once. Then we hit them first, Rodriguez replied. He stood at the master tactical display, coordinating with both human and free Nexus forces. The rebel faction had contributed 30 ships to their defense, a small number compared to the dominant fleet, but their knowledge of Nexus tactics had already proved invaluable. Admiral Chen's voice came through the command channel. All stations, this is Fleet Command. Operation Thunderbolt is now in effect. All units to designated positions. The human defense fleet emerged from its hiding places throughout the solar system. Automated warships that had been concealed in Jupiter's storms, beneath Mars' polar ice, and within asteroid fields now converged on predetermined coordinates. The AI controlling each vessel moved with perfect precision, executing maneuvers that would have been impossible for organic crews. Quantum shield grid at full power, Elena reported. Synchronization protocols are active and adapting to Nexus energy signatures. But sir, she hesitated. The calculations show their combined firepower could still overwhelm the grid if they concentrate their attack. Ambassador Kyrax, who had remained on the Hyperion to coordinate with the rebel ships, transmitted additional tactical data. Vexthor will target Earth first. He believes that destroying your homeworld will break humanity's will to fight. He doesn't understand what he's really facing. Rodriguez smiled grimly. No, he doesn't. He opened a channel to all Allied forces. All units, execute Pattern Omega. Show them what humanity has learned in the shadows. The battle began with a massive energy burst from the dominant flagship. The beam of concentrated quantum energy struck the shield grid protecting Earth and seemed to vanish. Alina's modifications had worked perfectly, the shield not only absorbing the attack, but growing stronger from the energy. Shield efficiency increased by 12%, she announced. The feedback loop is working. Vexthor's response came swiftly. The dominant fleet split into attack groups, targeting multiple points in the defense grid. But as they moved into position, humanity's trap was sprung. The automated defense platforms that had been disguised as debris and damaged satellites suddenly activated. Thousands of quantum mines, their signatures masked until this moment, detonated in carefully planned sequences. Nexus ships found their formation disrupted, their targeting systems confused by the chaos. Launch strike groups Alpha through Delta. Rodriguez ordered. The human fleet moved with devastating precision. A-controlled ships executing combat maneuvers that seemed to defy physics. They struck at the Nexus fleet's weak points, using the tactical data provided by the rebels to maximum effect. Multiple dominant ships disabled, Lieutenant Foster reported. Their quantum generators are overloading from the feedback. But Vexthor was far from defeated. His flagship unleashed a new weapon, a cascade of energy that began breaking down the quantum field at a molecular level. Warning signals flashed across Elena's displays. Shield grid sectors 7 through 12 are failing, she reported. The dominants have adapted their attack pattern. Her eyes widened. They're copying our feedback technology, using it against us. Then we show them something they can't copy, Rodriguez declared. He transmitted a series of commands to the AI fleet. Execute Protocol 0. Elena gasped as she realized what he was planning. Commander, if we do this, we'll lose 30% of our automated ships. Better than losing Earth, he replied. Admiral? Do it, Chen ordered. Throughout the battlefield, human warships began to move in seemingly random patterns. But there was nothing random about it. Each ship's quantum drive began to resonate at precisely calculated frequencies, creating a complex web of interference patterns. Free Nexus vessels, clear the following coordinates, Rodriguez transmitted. Fire control, execute on my mark. The AI ships accelerated to maximum speed, their quantum drives pushing past all safety limits. As they wove through the dominant fleet, the interference patterns grew stronger. Nexus ships found their own quantum systems disrupted by the chaos. Now, Rodriguez ordered. Every human vessel within the interference zone detonated their quantum cores simultaneously. The chain reaction created a ripple in space-time itself, not enough to cause permanent damage, but more than enough to disable every Nexus ship caught in the effect. Vexthor's flagship, protected by its advanced shielding, survived the attack. But now it stood almost alone, its support fleet either disabled or retreating. Quantum shield grid reestablishing, Elena reported. Coverage at 98% and holding. Ambassador Kirax's voice carried a note of awe. In all our centuries of warfare, we have never seen such a tactic. To sacrifice your own ships in such a precise manner. That's the difference between us, Rodriguez replied. You built your empire on the assumption that superior technology means superior civilization. We built our defense on the knowledge that victory sometimes requires sacrifice. The dominant flagship hung in space, surrounded by human and rebel ships. After a long moment, a transmission came through. This is Supreme Commander Vexthor. The voice was cold, ancient. We request terms. Admiral Chen stepped forward. Unconditional withdrawal from human space, recognition of Earth's sovereignty, and acceptance of the Free Nexus Coalition as legitimate representatives in future negotiations. There was a long pause. You would dare dictate terms to the dominants? No, Chen replied. We offer you the chance to learn what your rebels already have, that the galaxy is large enough for many kinds of civilization, and that strength comes in many forms. Hours later, as the dominant fleet retreated under the watchful eyes of human and rebel ships, Rodriguez stood with Elena and Admiral Chen in the Europa Command Center. The Defense Council is already talking about establishing a permanent diplomatic mission to the free Nexus worlds, Chen reported. And the data we gathered from the battle will help improve our defenses even further. And the quantum shield? Rodriguez asked. Elena smiled, already adapting and growing stronger. But more importantly, we've proved something I always believed, that humanity's greatest strength isn't our technology or our preparations. It's our ability to surprise everyone, including ourselves. As they watched the sensor feeds showing the last Nexus ships departing the solar system, Rodriguez thought about the long road that had led to this moment. Humanity had faced its trial by fire and emerged not just victorious, but with new allies and new possibilities. The signal that had started it all, the one Dr. Sarah Chen had accidentally triggered in those ancient ruins, had indeed awakened something. But not just the Nexus. It had awakened humanity to its own potential, proving that even in an ancient and powerful galaxy, there was still room for a young species with the will to stand its ground. The next chapter in human history was about to begin. And this time, they would write it among the stars.